Hey, tonight we explore the sacred grounds of a medieval monastery where healing is both science and divine calling. The year is 1267, and within stone walls draped in morning mist, knowledge of nature's remedies passes from one generation to the next. You stand at the threshold of becoming a healer in a world where medicine blends with prayer, where honey flows like liquid gold, and where herbs whisper their secrets only to those patient enough to listen. Winter frost is melting. Spring beckons. New growth, and your journey into the ancient arts of healing begins with the first light touching the monastery gardens. If you're enjoying this peaceful moment, please like, share, and subscribe. What time is it where you are? Which city are you watching from tonight? Dim your lights, turn on a fan for a soft background hum, and settle in. Let your thoughts wander gently into the past. You wake before dawn, your small pallet bed firm. Beneath your back, the rough wool blanket scratching slightly against your chin. The stone cell holds the night's chill. Your breath forming small clouds in the dim light filtering through the narrow window. Brother Thomas will be expecting you in the infirmary gardens as the bell rings for prime. You've been his apprentice for nearly 2 seasons now, learning the ways of healing that have been preserved within these monastery walls for generations. Your feet touch the cold stone floor, sending a shiver up your spine as you reach for your woolen habit and leather sandals. The fabric is coarse, against your skin, a constant reminder of humility as you prepare for the day's work. You splash water from a clay basin onto your face, the shocking cold fully awakening your senses. From somewhere down the corridor, you hear the stirring of other brothers rising to begin their daily devotions. Making your way through the cloisters, you hear the gentle murmur of morning prayers echoing against the stone arches. The air carries the scent of beeswax candles and incense. Frankincense today, you note, recognizing its distinctive, warm, spicy fragrance from your lessons on medicinal resins. Your steps are nearly silent along the worn flagstones as you slip past the chapel, heading toward the eastern gardens where Brother Thomas attends the healing herbs before morning prayers. The garden gate creaks softly as you push it open, revealing a world transformed by dawn's first light. Dew clings to spider webs strung between lavender stalks, turning them into glistening jeweled networks. The moisture has awakened the garden's scents: thyme, rosemary, sage, their aromatic oils rising. In the cool morning air, Brother Thomas is already there, his stooped figure moving slowly between the raised beds, his tonsured head bent in concentration or perhaps prayer. With him, the two are often indistinguishable. "You're late," he says without turning, though you've arrived before the bell. His awareness of his surroundings has always seemed uncanny to you. The bees are already at work. We should learn from their diligence. He straightens with effort, one hand pressing against his lower back, the other clutching a small bunch of freshly cut hyssop. You notice how the morning light catches the silver in his beard as he turns to you, his eyes crinkling at the corners, despite his stern tone. "Today, we harvest for the honey infusion. The abbot's cough worsens, and we shall prepare a remedy that will ease his suffering." He hands you a small knife, its wooden handle smooth from decades of use. Mind the bees as you work near the lavender. They are particularly protective of those blooms. Taking the knife, you feel its familiar weight, a tool of healing in the right hands, as Brother Thomas often reminds you. You move toward the lavender, carefully navigating between the buzzing workers who pay you little mind as long as your movements remain slow and deliberate. The lavender stalks release their calming scent as you cut them, the purple flowers vibrant against the green grey of their stems and leaves. Brother Thomas watches your technique from the corner of his eye while he gathers thyme. Remember, cut at an angle, he instructs. It helps the plant to heal and grow stronger. There is wisdom in his words beyond mere gardening advice, a philosophy that extends to his approach to healing the sick. A clean cut, a proper preparation, attention to the smallest detail. These can make the difference between medicine and poison, between life and death. With your basket half filled with herbs, Brother Thomas gestures for you to follow him to the beehives situated at the garden's southern edge. The low, steady drone grows louder as you approach. 5 wooden hives stand in a neat row, each painted with a different symbol to help the bees recognize their home. Brother Thomas approaches the second hive, marked with a simple cross, and you stand slightly back, respecting both the bees and the ritual you're about to witness. Honey, Brother Thomas says, lifting the top cover carefully, is God's most perfect medicine. It never spoils, draws infection from wounds, soothes burns, and carries the essence of flowers to heal from within. The inner surface of the cover is thick with bees, yet none fly aggressively toward him. You've noticed how they seem to accept his presence as if recognizing a kindred spirit. He removes the frame heavy with honeycomb, golden liquid catching the morning light. The Romans used honey to treat battlefield wounds. The Egyptians before them knew its value, and now we preserve this knowledge while others call it mere folk remedy. There's a hint of bitterness in his voice. The monastery's healing traditions sometimes clash with newer medical theories arriving from distant universities, where ancient knowledge mingles with Arabic translations and contemporary innovations. You hold a clay jar steady as he carefully cuts a portion of comb, allowing honey to drip slowly into the container. The sweet, complex aroma rises between you, notes of heather and wildflowers from the surrounding meadows where the bees forage. This will be the base for our cough remedy, he explains. We'll infuse it with hyssop, thyme, and a measure of crushed anise seeds. A bell sounds in the distance, the call to prime. Brother Thomas replaces the frame and seals the hive, his movements precise and reverent. Take these to the still room, he instructs, handing you the jar and basket of herbs. I will join you after prayers. The still room occupies a small outbuilding adjacent to the infirmary, its stone walls keeping the interior cool even in summer's heat. As you enter, the concentrated fragrance of dried herbs hanging from the ceiling beams envelops you. Chamomile, mint, wormwood, betony, each bundle neatly tied and labelled. Wooden shelves line the walls, holding dozens of ceramic jars, glass, vials, and small wooden boxes containing the monastery's medicinal treasures. Dried mushrooms, crushed minerals, precious spices from distant lands, and powders of uncertain origin that Brother Thomas dispenses with extreme caution. You place the honey jar on the work table and spread your harvested herbs beside it. Sunlight filters through the single small window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. While waiting for Brother Thomas, you busy yourself grinding dried marshmallow root for a poultice needed in the infirmary. The mortar and pestle make a rhythmic sound against the background murmur of morning prayers carrying faintly from the chapel. When Brother Thomas arrives, his face is serene from prayer, but his movements are purposeful. Now, watch carefully, he says, pulling a copper pot from beneath the table. For the abbot's remedy, proportions matter greatly. He measures honey into the pot, then adds water from a pitcher. Too much honey makes it difficult to swallow, too little, and the herbs become too bitter for compliance. You observe how he strips the tiny leaves from the thyme stems, explaining, "For coughs, we use the leaves only. The stems can irritate." Further, his fingers move nimbly despite their knobbly joints, evidence of the rheumatism that plagues him in damp weather. From a drawer, he retrieves a small cloth bag containing anise seeds, which he crushes lightly with a wooden mallet before adding them to the pot. "Stir slowly," he instructs as he hands you a wooden spoon, always in the same direction. Changing course disturbs the harmonious blending of the properties. You're unsure if this is medical wisdom or superstition, but you've learned not to question these subtle aspects of his craft. The mixture begins to warm over the small charcoal brazier, releasing a complex aroma of herbs and sweet honey. As you stir, Brother Thomas prepares small glass vials, washing them meticulously with vinegar, then clear water. "Cleanliness prevents corruption," he says, a principle he applies religiously in the infirmary. "I've seen too many healers create more harm than they cure through negligence of this simple truth." The remedy simmers gently, reducing to a thicker consistency. Brother Thomas tests it by lifting the spoon and watching how the liquid falls, not in drops but in a thin, continuous stream. "Perfect," he pronounces, removing the pot from heat. "Now it must cool before we add the final ingredient." From a locked cabinet, he retrieves a small dark bottle, handling it with particular care. "3 drops only," he says, removing the stopper. The sharp, menthol scent of essential oil extracted from wild mint fills the air between you. He counts the drops precisely as they fall into the warm honey mixture, then returns the bottle to its secure place. "This completes the physical preparation," he says, "but not the remedy itself." He places his hands on either side of the pot, closes his eyes, and begins to murmur a prayer. Part Latin liturgy, part invocation that sounds older, its words unfamiliar to you. You've seen this ritual before, but still find yourself holding your breath, watching as his lips move silently over the cooling medicine. When he opens his eyes, he nods for you to help transfer the remedy into the waiting vials. "The prayer is as important as the herbs," he tells you, not for the first time. Healing comes from God's grace working through these humble substances. Our role is merely to combine what he has provided with the right intention. As you carefully pour the golden liquid into each vial, Brother Thomas continues his instruction. The abbot will take 1 spoonful morning and night, and another if his coughing disturbs his sleep. The honey coats the throat, the hyssop loosens the congestion, the thyme fights the infection, and the anise eases the breathing. He pauses, watching your technique. Less haste, more care. These remedies represent our sacred duty to alleviate suffering. With the vials filled and sealed with beeswax, Brother Thomas sends you to deliver the medicine to the abbot's quarters while he begins preparing treatments for the day's infirmary patients. You carry the remedy carefully, the glass warm against your palm as you cross the monastery grounds. The abbot's quarters are spare but comfortable by monastery standards. You find him seated beside a window, morning light falling across an illuminated manuscript on the table before him. His cough interrupts his greeting, the sound wet and troubling. You present Brother Thomas's remedy with the proper instructions, demonstrating the correct dosage as you've been taught. Brother Thomas's concoctions taste better than those from the physician in the village, the abbot remarks after taking his first dose, the relief evident in his voice almost immediately, as the honey soothes his raw throat. Tell him I am grateful for his knowledge and his prayers. Returning to the infirmary, you find Brother Thomas preparing for the day's patients. Already, several villagers wait on benches in the small antechamber. A mother with a feverish child, an elderly man with swollen joints, a young woman holding a cloth to a festering cut on her arm. Brother Thomas moves among them, his manner changing subtly with each interaction. Gentle with the frightened child, respectful with the elder, properly reserved with the young woman. Observe their breathing, their color, the way they hold themselves. He instructs you quietly. The body speaks its distress in many languages. He examines the child first, placing a weathered hand on the small forehead, then checking the pulse at the neck. Marsh fever, he diagnoses, instructing you to prepare a willow bark decoction sweetened with honey. For the elderly man, he creates a poultice of comfrey root and honey to ease the joint pain. Apply it warm, he tells the man's daughter, who accompanies him. Cover with clean wool to hold the heat and renew it morning and evening. The young woman's wound concerns him more, the infection having spread in angry red lines from the original cut. When did this happen? He asks, examining it carefully in the light from the window. 3 days past, brother, she replies, wincing, as he gently probes the swollen area. I cleaned it with water and wrapped it, as my mother taught me. Brother Thomas nods, but looks troubled. Water alone is insufficient for such injuries. He turns to you. Prepare the honey salve with myrrh. We must draw out this infection before it travels further. While you gather the necessary ingredients, he cleanses the wound with wine, the woman biting her lip against the sting. You mix the thick, dark honey with powdered myrrh, creating a sticky paste that Brother Thomas applies directly to the wound. The honey draws out corruption, he explains to the woman as he works. The myrrh fights the infection. Together with prayer, they will help your body heal itself. He binds the wound with clean linen strips, instructing her to return tomorrow for examination. As morning turns to afternoon, you assist with each new case, preparing medicines, changing dressings, recording treatments in the infirmary ledger. Brother Thomas insists on detailed records, believing that patterns of illness and healing reveal themselves through careful observation over time. Our experiences must teach future healers, he often says, long after we have returned to dust. During a brief respite between patients, Brother Thomas takes you to a patient recovering from a serious fever. The man, a lay brother who works in the monastery's brewery, lies resting on a straw mattress in a small, clean cell. His face is gaunt from illness, but his eyes are clear. Brother Martin's recovery demonstrates the efficacy of honey water infused with elderflower, Thomas tells you. When the fever was highest, we could not get him to take food, but he would accept sips of this. It sustained him through the worst days. He checks the patient's pulse, nodding with satisfaction. Tomorrow you may rise for a short while, he tells Brother Martin. The day after, perhaps a brief walk in the garden if the weather holds. After the midday meal, a simple fare of barley bread, cheese and pears that you eat standing in the still room. Brother Thomas announces it is time to check the hives again. The honey we harvested this morning is for medicinal use, he explains, as you walk together through the garden, now warmed by afternoon sun. But we must ensure the bees have enough for themselves before winter returns. At the hives, he teaches you to observe the different types of bees, the workers, the few drones, and glimpses of the queen when you're fortunate. Like our monastery, each has its purpose, its divine calling, he says, pointing out a bee with pollen-heavy legs returning. From foraging, they work not for themselves, but for the community. Their selflessness ensures their survival. As he inspects each hive, he shares more of honey's medicinal properties. For burns, apply it directly with clean linen. For wounds, mix with wine, first if corruption has set in. For digestive complaints, dissolve in warm water with ginger. For sleeplessness, a spoonful with warm milk at bedtime. The litany of uses seems endless, and you strive to memorize each application. Tomorrow, he says as he closes the final hive, we will harvest specific honeys for specific ailments. The bees that feed primarily on lime blossoms produce honey, best suited for calming troubled minds. Those that favor the heather make honey that strengthens the heart. He looks at you directly, his gaze intense. You must learn to discern these differences. The subtleties matter greatly in healing. The afternoon progresses with lessons in preparing various honey-based remedies, salves for wounds, syrups for coughs, infusions for digestive troubles, and poultices for swellings. Brother Thomas demonstrates how different herbs complement honey's natural properties: lavender for calming, rosemary for memory, sage for women's complaints, thyme for chest infections. Always harvest herbs at their proper time, he instructs. Roots in autumn when their energy retreats from leaves. Flowers just as they fully open when their virtues are strongest. Leaves before flowering when their oils are most concentrated. You write these rules carefully in the small notebook made of scraped vellum that contains your growing collection of medicinal knowledge. As evening approaches, signaled by the changing angle of sunlight through the still-room window, Brother Thomas prepares you for your night duty in the infirmary. 3 patients will remain overnight. Brother Martin recovering from fever, an elderly pilgrim with chest congestion, and a young novice suffering from recurring headaches. The night hours often bring changes in the sick, Brother Thomas warns as he hands you a small lamp. Watch for signs of worsening, increased fever, difficulty breathing, confusion of mind. Wake me if you have concerns. He places a reassuring hand on your shoulder, a rare gesture of physical connection. Trust your observations. Your eyes and ears will tell you what the patient sometimes cannot. The infirmary takes on a different character at night. Shadows created by your lamp dance on the walls as you move quietly between the patients. The sounds change too. The rhythmic breathing of the sleeping, occasional coughs or murmurs, the distant call of a nightbird through the small window. You check each patient as instructed, feeling for fever, listening to breathing, offering sips of water or honey preparations when they wake. The young novice stirs restlessly, his face contorted in pain, even as he sleeps. Following Brother Thomas's instructions, you prepare a compress of honey mixed with crushed lavender and a few precious drops of rose water. You place it on his forehead, the way you were shown, and whisper the prayer for healing that accompanies this treatment. Gradually, his features relax, his breathing deepens, and he falls into more peaceful sleep. In the quiet hours before dawn, with your patient stable, you find yourself drawn to the small desk where Brother Thomas keeps his most precious possession. Translated copy of an ancient text attributed to Hippocrates, with additional notes from Arabic physicians. By lamplight, you carefully turn the pages, studying illustrations of herbs and detailed descriptions of their uses. Alongside the classical knowledge, Brother Thomas has added his own observations in careful script, which preparations failed, which succeeded, how combinations of remedies produced unexpected results. One section particularly captures your attention, a discussion of honey's use in preserving herbs and extending their efficacy. The ancient text describes a method of infusing honey with powerful herbs to create medicines that remain potent for years. A valuable technique in times when certain plants may be scarce due to drought or poor harvest. You're so absorbed in reading that you don't notice Brother Thomas's approach until his shadow falls across the page. You start expecting reproach for touching his precious manuscript, but he merely nods at the open book. The preservation of healing knowledge is as important as the preservation of the remedies themselves, he says quietly, moving to check on Brother Martin, whose breathing has become slightly labored. After adjusting the sick man's position to ease his chest, Brother Thomas returns to your side. Tomorrow, I will show you how to prepare the honey infusion described in that passage, he says, his voice low to avoid disturbing the patients. It is a technique few now remember, but one that has saved many lives during winter months, when fresh herbs cannot be found. As first light begins to filter through the infirmary windows, Brother Thomas inspects each patient, nodding with satisfaction. At their condition, you've done well, he says simply, the highest praise he offers. Now go rest before morning prayers. Your mind must be clear to continue learning. You make your way back to your cell, physically tired but mentally alert, your thoughts filled with the day's lessons. The complexities of healing, the precise combinations of natural elements, the careful observation of symptoms, the importance of cleanliness, and the power of focused intention weave together in your mind like the intricate pattern of a honeycomb. As you settle onto your pallet, pulling the rough blanket over your shoulders, you reflect on the path you've chosen. The knowledge Brother Thomas shares is precious, preserved through centuries by dedicated healers who understood nature's gifts. You feel the weight of that tradition, the responsibility to learn accurately and pass on what you learn. Outside, the bell rings for morning prayers. In the garden, the bees are awakening to begin another day of gathering nectar. Soon, you will rise again to continue your education in the ancient arts of healing. But for now, in these few moments of rest, you find yourself grateful for the wisdom of those who came before, those who discovered that honey, that golden gift from industrious bees, could preserve not only herbs, but human life itself. Your eyes grow heavy as you imagine generations of healers, stretching back through time, working by lamplight as you had tonight, mixing honey with herbs, whispering prayers over remedies, watching anxiously for signs of improvement in their patients. Their knowledge flows to you through Brother Thomas's gnarled hands and careful instructions, a precious legacy more valuable than gold. Tomorrow will bring new lessons, new patients, new challenges. But the foundations remain constant. The healing power of nature's pharmacy, the careful observations of experienced healers, and the gentle touch that brings comfort even when cure eludes. As sleep finally claims you, your last conscious thought is of honey, golden in the sunlight, complex in flavor, perfect in its natural design, and miraculous in its healing powers. A sweet metaphor for the intricate art you are learning to master. In your dreams, you wander through endless gardens of healing herbs, their scents mingling in the warm air, while bees dance from flower to flower, gathering the essence of health and healing to share with a world in need. And somehow, in this dream, you know that you are exactly where you are meant to be, learning an ancient wisdom that bridges earth and heaven, nature and spirit, suffering and relief. The monastery garden fades from view as another world begins to take shape around you, one of village cottages, morning mist rising from damp earth, and a woman whose hands know the secrets of the wild plants that others overlook. Here, healing comes not from formal study, but from knowledge passed through generations, from mother to daughter, in quiet whispers and careful demonstrations beneath the changing seasons. You wake to the soft pre-dawn light filtering through the shutters of your small cottage at the village edge, where forest meets field. The thatch above you rustles with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of dew-damp herbs from your garden. Your bones ache slightly, reminding you of the 6 decades you've witnessed, seasons turning, children born, elders passing, all under your watchful care as the village's healer, midwife, and keeper of ancient wisdom. Stretching slowly, you feel each joint protest, then relent as you rise from your straw-filled mattress. The packed earth floor is cool beneath your feet as you move to the hearth, where last night's embers still glow faintly. You add small kindling, dried twigs of apple wood that will impart a sweet scent, and blow gently until flames lick upward, casting dancing shadows across walls hung with bundles of drying herbs. Your morning ritual begins as it has for decades, washing face and hands in water collected from yesterday's rain, combing silver-streaked hair and braiding it tightly, dressing in layers of linen and wool dyed with plants from your garden. The familiar movements ground you in this day that will soon be filled with the needs of others. But these quiet moments belong to you alone. Time to center your thoughts and prepare your spirit for the work ahead. From a carved wooden box on your table, you take a spoonful of dark honey infused with chamomile, stirring it into hot water from the kettle now simmering over the fire. The first sip warms you from within, easing the slight stiffness that has become your constant companion with age. This particular honey comes from your own hives, 3 weathered wooden boxes nestled against the south-facing wall of your cottage, where they catch the most sunlight. As you drink, you mentally review your stores and the tasks awaiting you. Young Mary's babe is due any day now. Your birthing kit must be prepared. Old Thomas still needs the willow bark salve for his aching joints. The blacksmith's son has a cough that lingered through summer. Honeycomb and horehound should help. Before autumn, dampness settles in his chest. And your own supplies need replenishing. Certain plants must be gathered today while the moon wanes. Your cottage holds the organized chaos of a lifetime's collection. Bunches of herbs hang from ceiling beams, some fresh, some dried to dusty perfection. Shelves line the walls, holding clay jars of various sizes, each carefully labeled with symbols that only you understand. Glass bottles contain precious tinctures and oils, their contents ranging in color from pale gold to deep emerald. Baskets overflow with recently gathered roots and bark. Smooth stones, feathers, and small animal bones occupy special places on your workbench. Tools for a different kind of healing that few now remember, but many still secretly seek. From outside comes the soft clucking of chickens, reminding you that your other dependents await their morning grain. Fetching a small basket of mixed seeds, you step through your low doorway into the misty morning. Your garden spreads before you, not the neat rows found behind manor houses, but a seemingly wild profusion that follows patterns older than memory. Culinary herbs mingle with medicinal plants. Poisonous species grow carefully separated from their benign cousins, and flowering plants attract the bees and butterflies essential to your work. The chickens gather around your feet, pecking enthusiastically at the scattered grain. Beyond them, your 3 goats bleat for attention, their milk essential for certain salves too delicate for water. You stroke each animal's head as you complete your morning chores, murmuring the old words your grandmother taught you, part blessing, part thanks for their partnership in your healing work. With the animals fed, you return to your garden with a willow basket over your arm. The gathering must be done before the sun rises fully, when dew still clings to leaves, and the plant's essences are most concentrated. You move with deliberate slowness, selecting each leaf, flower, and stem with careful attention. Your fingers, gnarled like the roots you dig, know exactly how much pressure to apply, which plants need gentle coaxing and which require firm intention. Thyme first, its tiny leaves fragrant as you roll them between your fingers to test their readiness. Then, lavender, its purple blooms heavy with essential oils. Rosemary springs next into your basket, followed by the last of the season's calendula flowers, their orange petals still tightly curled in the early light. You whisper thanks to each plant as you harvest, an exchange as old as humankind. Their healing power for your respectful stewardship. The forest edge calls to you next, where different treasures await. The transition from cultivated garden to wild woodland is gradual. Plants you've encouraged over years have naturalized themselves among the trees, creating a borderland that belongs neither fully to human design nor completely to wild nature. Here grow the shy herbs that refuse domestication. The valerian with its strange scent, the ghostly white Indian pipe that feeds on decay, the delicate woodland violets whose leaves ease coughs. Deeper into the dappled forest light, you search for a particular treasure, the bracket fungus that grows on birch trees. When dried and prepared with honey, it creates a poultice that draws infection from wounds better than any other remedy you know. You find a perfect specimen on a fallen log, its growth indicating at least 3 years of development. Taking your small copper knife from its sheath at your belt, you carefully separate it from the bark, murmuring apologies and gratitude to the forest spirits. Your basket grows heavy with woodland gifts, the fungus, some witch hazel bark carefully, stripped to allow the tree's healing, early autumn berries still tart but perfect for cough syrups, and a handful of special mushrooms that appear only briefly each year. These last must be handled with particular care, healing in proper measure, poison if misused. As you emerge from the forest shadows, the sun has risen fully, burnishing the morning mist to gold. The village beyond your cottage is coming to life. Smoke rises from cook fires. Children's voices call to one another. Animals low and bleat as they're led to pasture. Soon they will come to you with their ailments and worries. But for now, this time belongs to your relationship with the plants. Back in your cottage, you spread your harvest on clean linen cloths across your workbench. Each plant requires different treatment. Some will be hung to dry. Others must be used immediately in tinctures or infusions. Some need to be crushed into pastes while their essences are still vibrant. You work methodically, your hands moving through patterns established through decades of practice. The bracket fungus demands attention first. You clean it carefully, then slice it thinly with your sharpest knife. Some slices go into a clay jar, covered with honey from your hives. The honey will draw out the fungus's medicinal properties over the coming weeks. Other pieces are set on a drying screen near the hearth, where they will slowly dehydrate until hard as wood, ready to be powdered for wound treatment. Next come the fresh herbs, sorted by purpose. Those for drying are bound with thin strips of linen and hung from hooks in your ceiling beams. Others are chopped finely on a well-worn wooden board, their aromatic oils releasing into the air, filling your cottage with a complex herbal symphony. Each plant contributes its note to the composition. Sharp mint, mellow chamomile, pungent valerian, sweet rose petals from your summer harvest. A soft knock interrupts your work. Opening your door, you find Mary standing there, one hand supporting her heavily pregnant belly, the other clutching a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Good morning, wise one," she says, using the title the villagers have given you, though you've asked them to use your name. "I've brought the eggs you requested, and..." She winces, pausing to breathe deeply. "I think the babe may come sooner than we thought." You usher her inside. helping her settle on the bench near your hearth. Your practiced eyes note the way she carries herself, the rhythm of her breathing, the slight sheen of sweat despite the morning coolness. You place your hands on her rounded belly, feeling the child within shift position. The firmness tells you Mary is right. Labor will likely begin before nightfall. Let me prepare something to ease your waiting, you tell her, turning to your shelves. From different jars, you take dried raspberry leaves, a pinch of chamomile flowers, and a small amount of crushed rose hips. These go into a clay cup, over which you pour hot water. While the herbs steep, you add a generous spoonful of your lightest, most delicately flavored honey, the spring honey that carries the essence of apple blossoms and early clover. Sip this slowly, you instruct, passing her the cup. It will strengthen you for what's to come and calm the little one's transition. You don't mention that it will also help ease the birth pains. Some things are better not anticipated. When the contractions begin in earnest, send your husband's youngest sister to fetch me. I'll come prepare your birthing room. Mary drinks obediently, one hand still cradling her belly. Will you use the special honey? She asks, referring to the preparation you've become known for. A mixture of honey, herbs, and bee pollen that you apply to the birthing passage to ease the baby's entry into the world. Few midwives know this technique, but you learned it from your grandmother, who learned it from hers, a lineage of knowledge stretching back beyond memory. Yes, you assure her, and I'll bring the birth necklace for you to hold. This is another of your traditions, a cord strung with specific objects for the laboring mother to focus upon during difficult contractions. A smooth river stone, a carved wooden bead, a tiny silver charm, a sprig of dried lavender sealed in resin. Each item has a story, a meaning, a power to distract and comfort during the intense work of bringing forth new life. After Mary leaves, you begin preparing your birthing kit. Clean linen cloths, boiled with thyme and dried in sunlight, a special blade kept only for cutting umbilical cords, the salves and tinctures that might be needed, a small pot of the birthing honey made last full moon when the herbs were at their most potent. You pack everything carefully in a basket lined with clean wool, covering it with a linen cloth embroidered with protective symbols. Your next visitor arrives as you finish. The blacksmith's wife, her face tight with worry. It's Thomas, she says without preamble. His chest is worse this morning. Can you come? You nod, gathering a different basket already prepared for such calls. Inside are honey infused with horehound and elecampane, a small jar of pine resin salve for rubbing on chest and back, and several packets of herbs for brewing strong therapeutic vapors. The blacksmith's cottage stands near the village centre, the attached forge, silent today, a sign of how ill Thomas must be for him to abandon his work. Inside, the air is close and smoky from a fire built too high in an attempt to ease his breathing. Thomas sits propped on his bed, each breath a visible struggle that ends in a racking cough producing little relief. You open the shutters slightly, allowing fresh air to circulate. From your basket, you take a small clay pot with a narrow spout and remove its beeswax seal. This is stronger than what I gave you before, you tell Thomas's wife as you pour thick, dark honey into a cup of hot water. 3 spoonfuls each day, morning, noon, and before sleep. To Thomas, you speak directly and firmly. Drink this now, while it's hot, all of it. Your tone brooks no argument. The burly blacksmith may intimidate others with his size and strength, but in matters of healing, your authority is absolute. He complies, grimacing at the strong herbal taste partially disguised by the honey's sweetness. While he drinks, you prepare the chest poultice, pine resin mixed with beeswax and oils of eucalyptus and thyme, spreading it on a piece of flannel, warmed near the fire. Bare your chest, you instruct, and his wife helps him remove his sweat-dampened shirt. His chest muscles are strong from years at the forge, but you can see how they strain with each difficult breath. You apply the warm poultice, covering it with another piece of flannel. This stays in place until evening, you tell his wife. Then, heat this. You hand her another jar, and apply a fresh layer for the night. You then prepare a steaming infusion in a wide bowl, dropping in a mixture of dried herbs and a generous dollop of honey. Lean over this, you tell Thomas. Breathe as deeply as you can. The steam will loosen what clings to your lungs. While Thomas follows your instructions, you take his wife aside. If the fever rises, or his lips show any blue tint, send for me, immediately, day or night. You press a small packet of herbs into her hand. Add this to his drinking water. It will help fight the infection from within. Your morning continues in similar fashion, moving from cottage to cottage where your skills are needed. For the tanner's daughter with an infected finger, you apply a poultice of honey mixed with the bread mold you carefully cultivate on special wooden boards kept in the cool darkness beneath your bed. For the elderly weaver, whose joints pain her so badly she can no longer work her loom, you bring a salve of meadowsweet and willow bark suspended in goat's fat and honey. For the farmer with an infected tooth, you prepare a numbing rinse of clove, oil and honey to use until the barber surgeon next visits the village. By midday, your healing rounds complete for the moment, you return to your cottage to continue the work interrupted by Mary's visit. The sun now streams fully through your small windows, illuminating dust motes dancing above your workbench. You set water to boil, then select a special oaken bucket reserved for one purpose only: the preparation of mead, the fermented honey, drink that serves both as cordial and medicine. From your largest honey jar, the special dark honey collected from forest hives rather than garden ones, you measure carefully, pouring the golden liquid into the bucket. The honey from wild bees carries different properties than that of your tended hives. Stronger, more complex, infused with the essence of plants that grow far from human influence. To this, you add water, neither too hot nor too cold, stirring, with a hawthorn stick carved with symbols few would recognize today. From a special pouch kept hanging above your door, you take a handful of dried herbs, meadowsweet, yarrow, heather blossoms, and elderflower, casting them onto the honey water mixture. Last comes a measure of yeast, carefully maintained from the previous batch, a living link to meads brewed decades ago. You cover the bucket with a clean cloth, weighting the edges with smooth river stones, and move it to a corner where temperature remains constant. In 6 weeks' time, this mixture will become a powerful healing mead, useful for strengthening those recovering from winter illnesses, for easing the transition of the dying, and for celebrating the critical moments that mark human existence: births, marriages, successful harvests. The brewing is accompanied by words spoken softly. Not prayers exactly, but invocations older than the stone church at the village centre, calling on forces that move through plants, bees and seasons. Your work is interrupted again by urgent knocking. Opening the door reveals Mary's young sister-in-law, breathless from running. "It started," she pants. "The pains come fast already." You nod, gathering your prepared birthing basket and a bundle of clean linens. Before leaving, You take a moment to center yourself, washing your hands in water infused with thyme, a ritual of purification before participating in the sacred act of bringing new life into the world. Mary's cottage is small but neat, recently swept and aired for the important event about to take place. She paces slowly, pausing to lean against the wall when contractions seize her. You direct her husband and mother to heat water, then help Mary prepare herself, loosening her hair, removing constraining garments, slipping a special birthing shift over her head. The fabric is soft from many washings and embroidered at neck and hem with symbols for safe delivery. As her labor progresses, you apply your special honey preparation to ease her birth passage. The mixture, honey infused with raspberry leaf, calendula and a trace of ground blue cohosh root, provides both lubrication and mild numbing, while slightly strengthening the contractions. You place the birth necklace in her hands, reminding her to focus on each object when the pain becomes intense. Remember, you tell her as she begins the serious work of bringing forth her child, your body knows this ancient dance. Trust it. Breathe with the pain, not against it. Your voice remains calm, your hands steady as you check the baby's position through Mary's belly. Good, you murmur. The little one is positioned well, ready to meet us. The labor progresses through afternoon and into evening. You support Mary as needed, physically holding her weight during squatting positions, massaging her lower back with warmed honey and lavender oil, offering sips of strengthening tea sweetened with the special spring honey. You sing softly at times old songs with melodies that rise and fall like waves, helping her find rhythm in what can feel like chaos. As twilight deepens outside, Mary's efforts intensify. You prepare the birthing area, clean cloth spread near the hearth's warmth, your tools arranged within easy reach, a small pot of honey-based salve warming for the newborn's first cleansing. Mary's mother keeps the fire fed, her husband supports, her back as she enters the final stage of labor. And you position yourself to receive the new life about to enter the world. Now, you tell Mary as you see the changes in her breathing and posture that signal full dilation. Let your body push when it wishes to push. Don't fight it, don't hurry it. Your hands are ready, your eyes alert for any complications. The room fills with Mary's primal sounds, deep guttural expressions of the enormous power moving through her body. And then, the miracle that never becomes ordinary, no matter how many times you witness it. A baby's head emerges, then shoulders, then the slippery rest of a new human being slides into your waiting hands. A girl, robust and perfectly formed, announcing her arrival with a vigorous cry. You clear her airways with practiced efficiency, then place her immediately on her mother's chest, covering both with warm cloths to maintain the precious heat of new life. While mother and child begin their acquaintance, you attend to the final stage of birth, the delivery of the placenta. You examine it carefully once it arrives, reading its condition like a text that tells you about the mother's health and the baby's 9-month development. Satisfied, you wrap it for later burial in Mary's garden, where its nutrients will feed the soil just as it fed the child. Only when mother and baby are settled comfortably, the birth area cleaned, and initial nursing successfully established, do you prepare to leave. You mix a special drink for Mary, honey stirred into warmed wine with herbs to prevent bleeding and encourage healing. Before departing, you give instructions for her care over the coming days and perform the traditional blessing. Touching the baby's forehead with a finger dipped in honey, while speaking words passed down through countless generations of healers. Night has fallen completely by the time you walk back to your cottage, the path lit only by stars and a thin crescent. Moon. Your body feels the day's exertions, the harvesting, the preparation of remedies, the hours spent attending Mary's labour. Yet your spirit is renewed, as it always is when you participate in bringing new life safely into the world. Your cottage welcomes you with familiar scents and shadows. You rebuild the fire, then warm water to wash away the day's accumulated smells of illness and birthing fluids. Clean again, dressed in your night clothes, you prepare your evening meal. Simple bread, cheese, and late summer berries, accompanied by a small cup of your medicinal mead. The fermented honey drink warms you from within, easing the aches in your back and shoulders, bringing a pleasant heaviness to your limbs. Before seeking your bed, you complete your day as you began it, with ritual and attention. You check your drying herbs, rearranging some to ensure even air circulation. You stir the new batch of mead, murmuring encouragement to the yeasts beginning their transformative work. You add a log to the fire, banking it carefully to maintain low heat through the night. Finally, you take a moment to stand in your doorway, looking out at the night sky, feeling the connection between your small human existence and the vast patterns of stars above. Tomorrow will bring new ailments to treat, new herbs to harvest, new remedies to prepare. The seasons are changing. Autumn approaches with its particular illnesses and required preparations for winter's healing needs. Your knowledge, accumulated through decades of practice and passed down through generations before you, flows through your hands into salves and tinctures, poultices and teas. In your small cottage at the edge, where village meets forest, you stand as intermediary between the human community and the plant world, between ancient wisdom and daily need. The honey that sweetens your remedies represents this connection perfectly. Transformed plant essence carried by bees between flowers, concentrated into healing sweetness, preserved against time's passage. As you finally settle onto your sleeping pallet, pulling the woolen blanket against the night's growing chill, you review the day's work in your mind. The blacksmith's son will need checking tomorrow. Mary and her babe should be visited to ensure good healing. The new batch of wound salve must be stirred. Seeds need collecting from the towering angelica plants before birds take them all. Your thoughts drift gradually towards sleep, but even in dreams, your healer's awareness remains. Twice during the night, you wake suddenly, sensing something amiss in the village. The first time, you drift back to sleep, recognizing it as merely a dog's howling at some night creature. The second time, near dawn, the feeling persists. Dressing quickly, you take your emergency basket, the one containing remedies for sudden fever, seizures, or bleeding, and follow your intuition through the silent village. Your senses lead you to the miller's cottage, where a candle already burns despite the early hour. Inside, you find his youngest child in the grip of a seizure, limbs rigid, eyes rolled back. The parents, frantic with fear, make way for you immediately. Your hands move with certainty, born of experience, administering drops of a special tincture of valerian and passion flower in honey under the child's tongue, then massaging specific points on feet and hands to redirect the chaotic energy coursing through the small body. Gradually, the seizure subsides. You prepare a more diluted version of the remedy in warm water sweetened with honey, showing the mother how to administer it every few hours. Keep him quiet today, you instruct. No bright light, no loud noises. I'll return at midday to check his progress. You place a protective charm of dried herbs bound with red thread beneath his pillow, a practice the village priest might frown upon, but one you know offers both symbolic and actual protection through the herb's subtle influences. Dawn breaks fully as you walk back to your cottage. The village is waking. Cockerels announce the day. Smoke rises from rekindled hearth fires. A dog barks greeting to its owner, emerging into the pale light. You nod to early risers already about their chores, accepting their respectful greetings with quiet dignity. Your own day begins again with feeding animals, checking beehives, and assessing which plants need harvesting. The cycle continues, gathering, preparing, healing, teaching. With each remedy you create, each birth you attend, each illness you treat, the ancient knowledge lives on through your hands and voice. And in the golden honey that forms the base of your most potent medicines, you recognize the perfect symbol of your life's work. Sweetness, drawn from many sources, carefully preserved, offering both immediate comfort and lasting healing to those in need. By mid-morning, you're back at your workbench, crushing dried comfrey root to add to a honey salve for bone injuries. Through your open door drifts the sound of children's voices. They're playing near enough for you to hear, but keeping a respectful distance from your cottage. Not from fear, though some villagers still view your knowledge with superstitious awe, but from the understanding, taught by their parents, that your work requires concentration and sometimes privacy. One child, braver than the others, approaches your doorway. Elspeth, the tanner's youngest, her previous fear of you apparently overcome by curiosity. She watches silently as you work the crushed herb into warmed beeswax and honey. After several minutes of observation, she asks, "How do the bees know how to make the honey?" You smile, pleased by the thoughtful question. "They follow patterns set since the beginning of time," you explain, continuing your grinding and mixing. The worker bees, all sisters, you know, visit thousands of flowers drinking their nectar. Inside their bodies, the nectar changes, becoming something new. When they return to the hive, they share this transformed nectar with other bees, who continue the changing. Then they store it in the honeycomb cells they've built from wax their bodies produce. Elspeth digests this information, her brow furrowed, in concentration. Do they know it heals people? Perhaps not, as we understand knowing, you reply. But bees are wise in ways different from human wisdom. They create perfect hexagons without measuring tools. They communicate through dancing. They work together without quarreling over who does what task. You pause your work to look directly at the child. There's much we could learn from bees about how to live properly in this world. The girl nods solemnly, then points to different bundles hanging from your ceiling. Will you teach me about those plants someday? The question warms you unexpectedly. Most children prefer to keep their distance, influenced by parents' warnings about not bothering the wise woman or by their own fears of the unknown. But occasionally, one shows the spark of interest, the potential to carry forward the knowledge you safeguard. Perhaps, you answer carefully. If you're genuinely interested in learning, you might help me gather herbs sometimes. Small fingers are good for harvesting certain plants. You return to your grinding, adding, "Ask your mother's permission first. Then come tomorrow at this time if you wish to start learning." Elspeth's face brightens with unexpected joy before she dashes away, presumably to seek that permission. You watch her go, wondering if she might eventually show the calling to become a healer. It's too early to know. The interest of a child can be fleeting, but you've learned to recognize potential apprentices early to nurture that spark when it appears. Your own training began similarly, with curiosity about the plants your grandmother gathered. By age 7, you could identify 20 healing herbs by sight, smell, and taste. By 12, you assisted with preparing basic remedies. At 15, you attended your first birth as helper, and by 20, you had begun developing your own variations on traditional preparations. Now, with your own days growing shorter as age advances, you find yourself increasingly concerned with passing on what you know. The afternoon finds you checking on your patients from yesterday. The blacksmith's son breathing easier, the miller's child recovered from the seizure but quiet and needing rest, Mary and her newborn daughter thriving. At each visit, you adjust treatments as needed, provide fresh remedies, and offer guidance for continued care. Returning to your cottage as the day's heat begins to wane, you find a woven basket hanging from your door latch, payment from Mary's husband for your birthing services. Inside are fresh eggs, a small wheel of cheese, a loaf of bread still warm from baking, and a length of finely woven linen cloth. Such exchanges maintain the balance of village life, your healing skills traded for the products of others' labours. The evening brings one final patient, the young shepherd who arrived recently to work for the manor's flockmaster. He limps to your door as twilight gathers, reluctant and clearly uncomfortable with seeking help. Men often come to you only when pain overcomes pride, especially young ones not raised in the village, who haven't known your healing touch since childhood. "What troubles you?" you ask, gesturing him to a seat near the fire. "My foot," he admits grudgingly. "Stepped on. Something in the high pasture 3 days ago. Thought it would heal itself, but let me see," you say, kneeling despite your protesting knees. The young man removes his rough boot and woolen wrapping to reveal an angry red wound on his heel, the skin around it hot and swollen. The puncture itself oozes yellowish fluid, a clear sign of infection advancing. You clean the wound carefully with water in which time has been steeped, then examine it more closely in the firelight. "There's something still inside," you tell him, reaching for your finest bone tweezers. "This will hurt," he nods, bracing himself as you probe the wound. Your skilled fingers soon locate and extract a sliver of metal, likely from an old horseshoe abandoned in the pasture grass. You place it aside, then prepare a special honey poultice for drawing out infection. "This honey comes from hives near the standing stones," you explain as you work. "The bees there feed primarily on heather and wild thyme. Their honey draws poison, from wounds better than any other I know." You apply the thick golden substance directly to the puncture, then cover it with a clean linen bandage. "Change this tomorrow using the extra honey I'll give you. Come back the day after so I can check." The healing. The young man watches you work, curiosity overcoming his initial reluctance. "My grandmother used honey for wounds too," he offers. "She said it was sweeter than any medicine from the town physicians with their fancy Latin words." You smile at this unexpected connection. Your grandmother was wise. Honey has been healing wounds since before there were physicians or Latin words for diseases. You hand him a small pottery jar sealed with beeswax. "This will last until you return. Keep the wound covered and rest that foot when possible." After he leaves, you step outside one last time to check your beehives in the day's fading light. Placing your hand gently on each hive, you feel the subtle vibration of thousands of workers inside. Their communal hum, a reassurance that all is well in their ordered world. Tomorrow they will rise with the sun to continue their ancient work, visiting blossoms, gathering nectar, transforming simple sweetness into potent medicine. "Thank you, sisters," you murmur to the bees, as you've done each evening for decades, for sharing your wisdom and your healing gift. The traditional words acknowledge the partnership between healer and bees, they who create the base for so many remedies, you who transform their offering into treatments for human suffering. Inside again, you prepare for night, banking the fire, securing shutters, laying out herbs that need processing tomorrow. Your hands move through these tasks without conscious thought, allowing your mind to drift through the day's events and tomorrow's necessities. More honey must be harvested soon. Winter preparations should begin. Elderberries for cough syrup, pine resin for chest rubs, roots of various plants that must be dug before ground freezes. As you settle onto your sleeping pallet, you find yourself thinking about Elspeth's questions, about the potential you glimpsed in her eager curiosity. Perhaps she will return tomorrow, perhaps not, but somewhere in the village, or perhaps in a child yet unborn, lives the next keeper of this knowledge, the next pair of hands that will crush herbs and mix honey-based remedies, the next voice that will sing birthing songs and whisper ancient words over beehives. This thought comforts you as sleep approaches. The wisdom flows through you, but does not end with you. Like the bees transforming nectar into honey, you transform knowledge through practice into something both old and new, preserving its essence while adapting to present needs. In this way, the healing continues, through hands and honey, through herbs and whispered words, an unbroken chain stretching back to when humans first observed the natural world and discovered its power to heal. The quiet wisdom of the village. Healer recedes like mist at sunrise, making way for the ordered grandeur of stone walls and guarded gates. Here, within a royal court where intrigue flows as freely as wine, another kind of healer works with honey and herbs, one whose patience wear crowns and whose remedies must succeed where others have failed. You wake to the sound of urgent knocking on your chamber door. Dawn has barely broken, the spring air still carrying winter's bite as it seeps through the leaded glass windows of your quarters within the palace's east wing. The knocking comes again, more insistent. Throwing aside your woolen coverlet, you reach for your physician's robe, deep blue wool embroidered with subtle golden symbols of your office, and move quickly to answer. A royal page stands in the corridor, livery immaculate despite the early hour. "Master Physician," he says with a quick bow, "Her Majesty requests your immediate attendance. The young prince's fever has returned." You nod gravely. Sleep falls away instantly as your mind catalogues what you'll need. "Tell Her Majesty I shall arrive directly, as soon as I gather my remedies." The page bows again and hurries away as you close the door and move with practiced efficiency to prepare. Your chambers reflect your dual status as royal physician and scholar. One room serves as sleeping quarters, simply furnished but comfortable by medieval standards. A curtained bed, a washing stand with porcelain basin, a chest containing your clothing. The adjoining room, twice as large, functions as both study and apothecary workshop. 3 walls are lined with shelves holding dozens of glass jars, ceramic containers, and wooden boxes, each meticulously labeled in your precise script. Dried herbs hang from the ceiling beams, and a large oak table dominates the center, its surface marked by countless stains from decades of preparing medicines. Moving to this work table, you open a cedarwood chest containing your most precious supplies. The young prince's recurring fever has troubled the court for weeks now. You've tried traditional remedies, willow bark, feverfew, with only temporary success. Last evening, you completed a new preparation you've been researching in ancient texts recently acquired from Constantinople. Its primary ingredients, wild honey gathered from forest hives, crushed rose hips, and a rare herb called feverwort, required careful preparation under specific astrological conditions. You lift the sealed glass vial, examining the amber liquid within. The combination represents a delicate balance. The honey both preserves the herb's potency and makes it palatable for a child, while the rose hips provide strength against winter's lingering illnesses. You place the vial carefully in a leather pouch alongside several other remedies that might be needed. Then add your silver measuring spoons, a small mortar and pestle of polished marble, and clean linen cloths. Before departing, you glance at the treatise still open on your reading desk, the translated work of Abu al-Qasim al-Zahrawi, whose medical knowledge far exceeds that available in most European courts. Your marginalia fill the parchment's edges, questions and observations from your own practice. This integration of ancient wisdom with empirical observation has earned you both respect and suspicion at court, where innovation often walks a dangerous line between miracle and heresy. The corridors are beginning to stir with early morning activities as you make your way toward the royal family's private chambers. Servants carrying wood for morning fires nod respectfully as you pass. Two courtiers, unusual finding any nobility awake at this hour, watch you with calculating eyes, surely noting your urgency and speculating about whose health might be in question. At the entrance to the royal apartments, guards in ceremonial armor stand at attention. They know you by sight, but protocol demands they verify your identity. Master Physician, answering Her Majesty's summons, you state formally. The senior guard nods, striking his staff once against the stone floor before opening the ornately carved door. Within the antechamber, the Queen's personal lady-in-waiting rises from her seat, her face tight with concern. This way, Master. They are in the Prince's bedchamber. She leads you through several interconnected rooms, each more richly appointed than the last. Tapestries depicting hunting scenes and biblical stories adorning the walls. Despite the early hour, candles burn in silver sconces, casting dancing shadows across the finely crafted furniture. The Prince's chamber, when you enter, presents a scene of controlled anxiety. The Queen herself sits at the bedside of her 7-year-old son, her usual regal composure strained by maternal worry. Two ladies-in-waiting hover nearby, while the King's own physician, your nominal superior in the court hierarchy, but a man whose training relies more on classical texts than practical experience, stands by the window, his expression suggesting he has already offered what advice he can. The Queen looks up as you enter, relief visible in her eyes. Master, thank heaven you've come. His fever rose suddenly in the night. We've used cold cloths as you instructed previously, but he grows hotter still. You approach the bed and bow first to the Queen, then turn your full attention to your patient. The young prince lies amid embroidered pillows, his face flushed crimson, fair hair darkened with sweat against his forehead. His breathing is rapid and shallow. When you place your hand gently on his brow, the heat radiating from his skin confirms the severity of his condition. How long has he been this hot, Your Majesty? You ask, already opening your medicine pouch. Since just after midnight. He was improving yesterday. He even sat up for his tutor in the afternoon, but then woke crying that his head pained him terribly. The strain in the Queen's voice reveals what her composed expression attempts to hide: fear. This child, her only son after 3 daughters, represents not just a mother's love, but the kingdom's future. You check the prince's pulse at the neck, too rapid. Then gently open his mouth to examine his tongue and throat. No visible inflammation explains the fever. His lymph nodes feel slightly swollen beneath your careful fingers. When you press lightly on his abdomen, he moans but doesn't indicate specific pain. Has he taken any food or drink since the fevers? Return, you ask, measuring symptoms against possible diagnoses in your mind. Only a few sips of watered wine before dawn, one of the ladies in waiting answers. He refused the broth cook prepared. You nod, reaching a decision. From your pouch, you withdraw the vial of honey-based remedy. Your Majesty, I have prepared a new medicine that I believe will address the prince's fever more effectively than our previous attempts. You explain its components briefly, emphasizing the carefully selected honey's importance as both preservative and healing agent in its own right. The court physician by the window stirs at this, his voice measured, but skeptical. Master, surely the traditional remedies of Galen would be safer in this delicate situation. This preparation you describe is not found in the classical texts. You meet his gaze steadily. With respect, Doctor, I have found that certain conditions respond better to remedies developed more recently, particularly those incorporating wisdom from Arabian and Byzantine sources. You turn back to the Queen. The preparation is mild enough for a child, but potent in its effects. I would not suggest it if I had not studied its components thoroughly. The Queen looks between you and the court physician, then down at her suffering son. Her authority in this chamber is absolute. Even the king defers to her in matters concerning the children's welfare. Proceed, she says simply. You measure the amber liquid carefully onto a silver spoon, then sit on the edge of the bed. Your Highness, you say softly to the prince, whose eyes flutter open at your voice. I need you to swallow this medicine. It tastes of honey and will help cool the fire in your blood. The child regards you with fever-bright eyes. Unlike many noble children, he has always shown you respect rather than haughty dismissal. Will it taste foul beneath the honey, Master Physician? He asks, his voice raspy. You smile slightly. There is some bitterness, my prince, but the honey masks most of it. 3 spoonfuls now, and another in 2 hours, should bring relief. You hold the spoon to his lips, and he takes the medicine obediently, grimacing slightly at the aftertaste, but swallowing completely. After administering the full initial dose, you prepare a cooling wash from your supplies, lavender water with a few drops of distilled rose essence. This should be applied to his temples, wrists, and the back of his neck, you instruct the lady in waiting. Not cold, but cool, refreshed hourly. To the Queen, you explain. The fever may rise slightly higher before it breaks. This is the medicine drawing the heat outward. If he sweats profusely within the hour, it is a good sign. Ensure he drinks small amounts frequently. Honey water would be ideal, thinned more than usual. The Queen nods, her composure maintained through long practice at hiding emotions. And if the fever does not break by midday, then we shall try another approach, you answer honestly. But I have significant confidence in this remedy, Your Majesty. I have used similar preparations successfully with children of the nobility suffering comparable symptoms. Though you don't mention it, you've also tested versions of this remedy on children in the city beyond the palace walls. The sons and daughters of merchants and craftsmen who seek your help when court duties permit. These unofficial patients provide invaluable experience that royal service alone could never offer. You remain with the prince for another hour, monitoring his condition closely. The other court physician has departed, presumably to report to the king, leaving you alone with the royal patient and his anxious mother. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, The prince's breathing eases. When you check his pulse again, it has slowed to a less alarming rate. The medicine begins its work, you tell the queen. With your majesty's permission, I will now prepare additional doses in my workshop and return before the second administration is due. The queen grants her permission with a graceful inclination of her head. As you gather your things, she speaks again, her voice pitched for your ears alone. Master physician, the Easter court gathering approaches, with dignitaries expected from 3 kingdoms. The prince must be well enough to appear, at least briefly. You understand the unspoken command beneath her words. Royal illness is never merely a medical matter. It has diplomatic implications, affects perceptions of dynastic strength, influences political alliances. I shall direct all my knowledge toward ensuring His Highness's swift recovery, Your Majesty. Returning to your workshop, you immediately begin preparing additional doses of the remedy, carefully measuring each ingredient according to the proportions you've determined most effective. As you work, your mind considers contingencies should this treatment prove insufficient. The stakes of failure are considerably higher when treating royalty than when healing common folk. Your position at court, hard won through years of study and demonstrated skill, hangs perpetually in a delicate balance. Success brings favor, richer appointments, greater access to rare medical texts and ingredients from distant lands. Failure, particularly with patients of high status, can mean immediate dismissal or worse. You've seen court physicians exiled when noble patients died, regardless of whether their treatments were at fault. A soft knock interrupts your thoughts. Your assistant, Henri, a serious young man from Normandy who serves as both apprentice and secretary, enters with a basket covered by linen cloth. Master, I've collected the fresh herbs you requested yesterday, he says, placing the basket on a clear corner of the work table. And this arrived while you were with the prince. He hands you a sealed parchment bearing the mark of a well-known apothecary in the city. You break the seal and scan the contents. Confirmation that a shipment of rare materials has arrived from Venice. True cinnamon bark, high-quality frankincense, and most importantly, a special honey from Sicily where bees feed primarily on citrus, blossoms, and wild thyme. This honey, mentioned in several Byzantine medical texts, reportedly possesses exceptional properties for treating lung ailments. Excellent timing, you tell Henri. We shall need to send payment immediately to secure these supplies. You reach for your personal strongbox, unlocking it with a key worn around your neck. Inside lies a carefully maintained store of silver coins. Your court salary supplemented by gifts from grateful nobles whose family members you've treated. You count out the substantial sum required, placing the coins in a leather pouch which you hand to Henri along with written authorization to collect the shipment. Exercise caution, you warn him. The streets grow more crowded as Easter approaches, and such valuable cargo attracts unwanted attention. After Henri departs, you continue preparing the prince's medicine. The process requires complete concentration, measuring precise amounts, heating certain components to specific temperatures. Combining ingredients in the exact sequence your research suggests will maximize efficacy. Throughout the procedure, you murmur prayers and invocations, some from the church's teachings, others far older, learned from a village healer during your youth before formal medical training. Your medical practice has always existed at the intersection of multiple traditions. Your formal education at Salerno taught Hippocratic and Galenic principles, emphasizing the 4 humors and their proper balance. Your later studies in Montpellier introduced Arabian medical knowledge transmitted through translated texts And beneath these learned approaches lies the foundation of your earliest training. The practical herbalism and folk remedies passed from healer to apprentice across countless generations. This integration of different healing traditions makes you particularly valuable to the royal court, where patients have often exhausted conventional treatments before seeking your assistance. Yet it also places you in a precarious position when more traditionally minded physicians question your methods. With the additional doses prepared and carefully sealed in glass vials, you gather your materials to return to the prince's chambers. As you cross the palace courtyard, the morning sun now fully risen above the eastern walls, you encounter the king himself, returning from early mass with his personal retinue. "Master physician," he calls, gesturing you to approach. You bow deeply, waiting for permission to rise before meeting his gaze. "Your Majesty." "Walk with me," the king commands, dismissing his attendants with a wave. As you fall into step beside him, maintaining the proper deferential distance, he speaks in low tones. "Dr. Reynard tells me you are using an experimental treatment on my son, something involving wild honey rather than the prescribed remedies for childish fevers." You choose your words carefully, aware that Dr. Reynard, the court physician, who had been present earlier, likely presented your approach in the least favorable light. "Your Majesty, the treatment incorporates several well-documented healing agents, including honey gathered from specific forest regions where bees feed on plants with known febrifuge properties. The combination follows principles established by both Avicenna and Hildegard of Bingen, adapted to the prince's particular constitution." The king walks in silence for several steps, his face unreadable. Unlike his wife, who has always supported your somewhat unconventional approaches, he tends to favor tradition in all things, including medicine. "Results, Master Physician," he finally says. "In matters of health, particularly my son's, I care more for results than theories or authorities. The Easter court approaches. Foreign dignitaries will expect to see the prince, healthy, strong, embodying the future of our line." He stops walking, turning to fix you with an intense stare. "See that your honey medicine delivers what conventional treatments have not." "I shall do everything in my power, Your Majesty." The king nods once, then continues toward his private chambers, attendants falling back into formation around him. You release a carefully controlled breath, understanding perfectly the implicit threat in his words. Court positions have been lost for far less than a royal child's prolonged illness. When you return to the prince's chambers, you find the atmosphere markedly changed. The young boy sits propped against pillows, still flushed but alert, sipping honey water from a silver cup. The queen rises as you enter, genuine relief visible on her face. "Master, your remedy seems to be working already." His fever has lessened somewhat, and he asks for drink without prompting. You approach the bed, professional caution tempering your optimism as you assess the prince's condition. His skin remains hot to the touch, but noticeably less so than earlier. His pulse has slowed further, and his eyes focus clearly on your face. "How does your highness feel?" you ask, preparing the second dose of medicine. "My head hurts less," the prince answers, "and I'm very thirsty." "The thirst is good. It means your body fights the fever. This medicine will help it fight more effectively." You administer the second dose, pleased when the boy takes it without resistance. To the queen you explain, "The improvement is encouraging, but not yet a victory. The fever must break completely to prevent its return. I've prepared sufficient medicine for today's treatment, and I recommend continuing with the lavender cooling cloths between doses." You leave additional instructions for the prince's care, promising to return in the afternoon to assess his progress and adjust treatment if necessary. As you exit the royal apartments, you allow yourself a moment of cautious optimism. The initial response suggests your research into honey-based febrifuges is bearing fruit, knowledge that could benefit not just the royal family, but many others suffering similar ailments. Your next hours are filled with regular duties, consulting with kitchen staff about proper foods for various court members with specific health needs, examining an elderly countess suffering joint pains, instructing your assistant in the preparation of basic remedies. Throughout these tasks, your mind periodically returns to the prince, calculating when his fever might break completely if the treatment progresses as hoped. By mid-afternoon, word comes that the prince's condition has improved substantially. The messenger, one of the queen's trusted ladies, reports that he has taken light nourishment and even sat up to look at an illuminated book brought by his tutor. You send back specific instructions for his continued care, including a honey-based sleeping draught to ensure restful recovery overnight. With the immediate crisis apparently resolving, you turn your attention to another project interrupted by the morning's emergency. From a locked cabinet, you remove a bound manuscript, your own developing treatise on medicinal preparations, using honey as their foundation. Years of observation and experimentation have convinced you that honey possesses properties insufficiently explored in standard medical texts. Your work documents dozens of honey varieties, each with distinct medicinal properties based on which flowers the bees primarily visited. Dark forest honey from bees feeding on oak honeydew proves most effective for lung complaints. Spring honey from fruit tree blossoms works particularly well in digestive remedies. Heather honey from northern moors demonstrates remarkable wound healing properties. And special honey from bees that visit primarily toxic plants, carefully processed to remove dangerous elements while retaining therapeutic compounds, shows promise in treating certain intractable conditions. You've organized your findings methodically, comparing your observations with ancient knowledge from Egyptian papyri, Byzantine medical compilations, and Arabic texts. The resulting manuscript represents your most significant contribution to medical knowledge, if you can complete it and find means to have it copied and distributed. A loud commotion in the corridor interrupts your writing. The door bursts open without the courtesy of knocking, admitting a red-faced Baron Thornfield supporting his even redder-faced son, a knight in his early 20s, known for his prowess in tournaments and his excessive indulgence afterward. Master, physician, you must help, the Baron announces. My son was feasting with the Burgundian envoys when he suddenly couldn't catch his breath. His face swelled before my eyes. You rush to examine the young knight, recognizing immediately the telltale signs of a severe reaction. Swollen lips and eyes, labored breathing, hives rising on his neck. You've seen this dangerous condition before, most often following consumption of specific foods or contact with certain plants. Lay him here, you direct, clearing space on the padded examination bench. What exactly did he eat or drink before the symptoms began? Nothing unusual, the Baron insists as his son struggles for breath. Wine, meat, the same honey cakes everyone enjoyed. Honey cakes? You interrupt, a suspicion forming. Made with local honey or imported? From the Burgundian gifts, I believe. Some special honey from their alpine regions. You nod, moving quickly to a specific shelf where you keep emergency remedies. From a small box, you retrieve a vial containing a thick, dark substance, a preparation of your own creation made from local honey, infused with specific herbs known to counter such reactions. Hold him upright, you instruct the Baron. He must swallow this. With some difficulty, you manage to administer the remedy to the gasping young man. Next, you prepare a poultice of crushed herbs mixed with regular honey, applying it to his chest and throat. This will help open his breathing passages, you explain to the anxious father. The internal remedy will reduce the swelling, but it takes time to work. Over the next tense hour, you monitor the knight's condition, noting with relief the gradual easing of his breathing and reduction of facial swelling. When he finally manages to speak, you question him directly. Has this happened before? Perhaps after eating particular foods? He nods weakly. Once, after a feast where I ate many almond pastries, and again with some foreign wine. Never this severely. You explain to both men the nature of such reactions, how certain bodies violently reject specific substances that others consume without issue. Your son must avoid alpine honey in the future, you tell the Baron. His body clearly cannot tolerate something within it, perhaps pollen from mountain flowers not found in our region. After providing detailed instructions for the knights, care over the next day, including a small supply of the honey-based remedy should symptoms return, you send them away with warnings about future precautions. The interruption has consumed precious time, but you cannot regret it. Without prompt treatment, such reactions can prove fatal. Evening approaches, bringing Henri's return with the precious shipment from Venice. The materials are everything. You hoped, the Sicilian honey particularly fine, with a distinctive citrus fragrance and clarity suggesting careful harvesting and storage. You immediately begin testing its properties, comparing it to local varieties, and noting its exceptional viscosity and slower crystallization. A palace page arrives as twilight deepens, bringing a formal message from the Queen. The prince's fever broke completely an hour past, following profuse sweating just as you predicted. He has taken nourishment, his eyes are clear, and he rests comfortably. Her Majesty requests your attendance in the morning to assess his recovery and advise on rebuilding his strength quickly. Relief washes through you at this news. The honey-based febrifuge has proved successful in perhaps your most high-stakes case. With proper documentation of the treatment and results, this approach could eventually find wider acceptance among traditional physicians. You write a brief, respectful response to the Queen, promising to attend the prince immediately after. Morning chapel services. After dispatching the page, you allow yourself a rare moment of professional satisfaction. Success with royal patients translates directly to increased freedom for your research, and perhaps support for eventually publishing your treatise on medicinal honeys. Before retiring, you carefully record the day's events in your personal journal. The prince's symptoms and response to treatment, the knight's severe reaction and its management, initial observations about the Sicilian honey's properties. Such meticulous documentation forms the backbone of your medical practice, allowing you to refine treatments based on accumulated evidence rather than merely following ancient authorities. Your private chambers feel especially welcoming after the long, tense day. A servant has lit the small fire that takes the spring night's chill from the air and left a simple meal of bread, cheese, and wine on your table. You eat without really tasting, mind already turning to tomorrow's duties and the longer-term implications of today's successful treatment. Sleep comes quickly when you finally seek your bed, but even in dreams, you find yourself in your workshop, measuring honey into glass vials, searching endlessly for the perfect formulation to heal ailments, both common and royal. Morning arrives with the chapel bells. After washing and dressing, you attend the early service, standing at the appropriate distance from the royal family while offering genuine thanks for the prince's improved health. The king catches your eye briefly during the proceedings, giving an almost imperceptible nod that speaks volumes about your restored standing. Following the service, you proceed directly to the prince's chambers, carrying a specially prepared tonic to complete his recovery. A mixture of several honey varieties, selected for their strengthening properties, infused with herbs that support the body after fever. You find the young royal propped up in bed, color normal, engaged in examining a miniature wooden castle brought by one of his tutors. The queen receives you with marked favor, rising to meet you rather than waiting for your approach. Master physician, your remedy proved miraculous. By sunset, he was nearly himself again, and this morning asked for his breakfast before dawn. You bow respectfully. I am greatly relieved by His Highness's recovery, Your Majesty. With your permission, I would like to examine him briefly and provide a final medicine to restore his strength completely. Your examination confirms what is visibly apparent. The fever has fully abated, leaving the child weakened but fundamentally healthy. You administer the strengthening tonic, explaining to both mother and son that he should continue taking it for 3 days. When may he resume his normal activities? The Queen asks, the Easter court clearly on her mind. I recommend 1 day of quiet rest, Your Majesty. Tomorrow, he might receive visitors briefly. By the 3rd day, he should be able to appear at court. Functions for limited periods, with proper rest between appearances. She nods, satisfied with this timeline that will allow the prince to participate in the important diplomatic gatherings. Dr. Reynard suggested a bloodletting to prevent relapse, she mentions, studying your reaction. You choose your response carefully, aware of the professional tensions at play. In some cases, that approach has merit, Your Majesty. However, in my experience, children recover their strength more quickly without bloodletting following fevers of this nature, particularly when they respond so well to other treatments. We will follow your recommendation, she decides. Your honey remedies have proven their worth. She gestures to a lady-in-waiting, who presents you with a small, ornate box. A token of royal appreciation for your dedicated service. You accept the gift with appropriate gratitude, knowing without opening it that it likely contains gold coins, or perhaps a small piece of jewelry, conventional rewards for service to the crown. The real prize, however, is the Queen's evident trust in your medical approach, which may translate to support for your ongoing research. As you exit the royal apartments, you encounter Dr. Reynard in the corridor. His formal nod barely disguises his displeasure at being overridden in the prince's treatment. I hear congratulations are in order, Master Physician. It seems honey proves sweeter than traditional medicine in royal tastes. The barb is clear, but you refuse to be drawn into open conflict. Different approaches serve different needs, Doctor. Perhaps we might discuss the complementary benefits of various treatments sometime. I would value your insights on classical methods that might enhance my own practice. He seems momentarily disarmed by your conciliatory tone, though suspicion lingers in his expression. Perhaps, though I maintain that innovations should build upon established foundations rather than replacing them entirely. On that, we agree completely. You respond with genuine sincerity. Your work has never aimed to discard traditional medicine, but to expand its boundaries through careful observation and controlled experimentation. The rest of your day fills quickly with routine duties and appointments. Word of the prince's recovery and your role in it has spread through court, bringing several new patients to your door seeking consultation for various ailments. You treat each according to their needs, sometimes prescribing conventional remedies. other times offering your specialized honey-based preparations when appropriate. By late afternoon, you finally find time to return to your manuscript. The success with the prince provides an excellent case study to include, carefully anonymized of course, as protocol demands when discussing royal patients. You detail the formulation used, the observed progression of recovery, and your theoretical understanding of why the specific honey variety proved effective against this particular fever. As twilight approaches, Henri brings word that a special visitor awaits. Brother Marcus from the Abbey, known for its extensive medicinal gardens and innovative beekeeping. You've corresponded with him for years, exchanging knowledge about honey varieties and their medical applications, but rarely have the opportunity for direct conversation. You welcome the monk warmly to your workshop. Despite his simple habit and humble demeanor, Brother Marcus possesses perhaps the most comprehensive understanding of honey production in the entire region. His experimental apiaries at the Abbey maintain different types of hives and strategically place them near specific plant collections to produce honeys with distinct medicinal properties. I've brought samples from our newest endeavor, he tells you, placing a wooden box containing 6 small pottery jars on your table. We've established hives near our lavender fields, but surrounded them with specific companion plantings, thyme, rosemary, and a few rarer herbs. The resulting honey shows interesting properties for calming agitation without causing drowsiness. You examine the samples with genuine excitement, opening each jar to assess color, aroma, and viscosity. This is extraordinary work, brother. Have you tested its efficacy with the more agitated among your novices? He smiles at the gentle jest. Indeed, and with several elderly brothers whose minds wander in distressing ways. A spoonful in there. Morning porridge markedly improves their coherence without the stupefaction that poppy preparations cause. You spend a pleasant hour exchanging observations and theories. Brother Marcus shares news of experiments with placing hives near healing springs, wondering if the water source affects honey properties. You describe your success with the prince without naming him specifically, focusing on the technical aspects of the preparation that proved effective. I've often thought, Brother Marcus muses as your conversation winds down, that God perhaps gave us the bee as the perfect metaphor for medicine itself. The bee visits hundreds of different flowers, taking something from each, transforming these varied essences into something entirely new, something that preserves, heals, and nourishes. Is this not what we attempt in our own humble way? Gathering wisdom from many sources, transforming it through careful work, creating healing where there was none before. The monk's poetic perspective resonates deeply with your own philosophy of medicine. Indeed, brother, and like beekeepers, we must constantly balance tradition with observation, respecting the ancient wisdom while remaining open to new discoveries. After, Brother Marcus departs, promising to send regular reports on his continuing experiments. You return to your manuscript with renewed purpose. The monk's visit has reminded you why this work matters beyond court politics and professional standing. Properly documented and shared, your research could eventually alleviate suffering far beyond the palace walls. Your quill moves steadily across the parchment as evening deepens into night. You detail preparation methods, record observed effects, theorize about mechanisms of action. The text gradually takes shape, a systematic exploration of honey's medical applications more comprehensive than any existing treatise. When you finally retire, mind still turning with ideas to investigate tomorrow, you reflect on the day's successes. A royal patient recovered, professional standing secured, research advanced, knowledge shared with a like-minded colleague. In the precarious world of court medicine, such days are rare treasures to be savored. As sleep approaches, you find yourself thinking of bees, those tiny tireless workers who create the substance at the heart of your most effective remedies. From humble insects comes a material so perfect in its natural design that no human laboratory could improve it. A sweet ambassador from the natural world to the world of human suffering, bridging the gap with golden efficiency. In that drowsy space between wakefulness and dreams, you make a silent promise to continue documenting honey's healing properties with the same diligence the bees show in creating it, visiting every possible source of knowledge, distilling it carefully, transforming it into something that preserves life's sweetness for as many patients as possible, from crowned princes to the simplest peasants beyond the palace walls. The ordered world of the royal physician fades from view, replaced by open skies and distant horizons. Now your path leads along dusty roads connecting distant lands, where each step brings new terrain, unfamiliar tongues, and healing traditions unknown in your homeland. As a pilgrim seeking both spiritual enlightenment and medical knowledge, you discover that honey's golden touch transcends all borders. You wake before dawn on a simple straw pallet in a roadside hospice maintained by Benedictine brothers. The stone walls hold the previous day's heat, creating a comfortable cocoon despite the autumn chill that has descended overnight. Around you, fellow travelers still slumber, merchants, craftsmen, other pilgrims, all temporarily united by the ancient roads that connect shrine to shrine, city to city across the vast tapestry of medieval Christendom. Careful not to disturb the others, you rise and gather your modest belongings. Your pilgrim's scrip, a leather satchel suspended from a strap across your body, contains your most precious possessions. A small psalter with illuminated margins, a letter of safe passage from your bishop, a pouch containing silver coins sewn into the lining for security, and your healer's kit. This last item, a rolled leather case tied with cords, holds the tools and remedies you've carried from your homeland and supplemented with knowledge gathered at each stop on your journey. Outside, the monastery courtyard is quiet save for brothers, moving silently about their early morning duties. The eastern sky shows the first pale promise of sunrise. You make your way to the small chapel, where several monks already kneel in prayer, their soft chanting creating a gentle rhythm that seems to bridge earth and heaven. You join them briefly, offering gratitude for safe shelter and asking blessing for the day's journey ahead. After prayer comes a simple breakfast in the refectory. Dark bread, a small portion of cheese, watered wine. The brother in charge of hospitality approaches as you finish eating. "You are the healer who helped Brother Martin yesterday?" he asks, his Latin accented with local inflections you're still learning to decipher. You nod. Yesterday upon arrival, you had noticed an elderly monk struggling to walk, his face contorted with the pain of an inflamed joint. When you offered assistance, showing the small wooden medallion that identifies you as a trained healer, the hospice master had gratefully accepted. You treated the brother with a poultice made from herbs carried in your kit, bound with honey, purchased in the last town. He woke much improved and asked me to give you this in thanks. The hospice master hands you a small clay pot sealed with wax. Honey from our own hives. Brother Martin says to tell you it comes from bees that feed, primarily on lavender and rosemary growing in our hillside gardens. You accept the gift with genuine pleasure. Throughout your journey, you've made a study of different honey varieties, finding that each region's product carries unique properties reflecting local flora. This monastery's lavender-infused honey will make an excellent addition to your healing kit, particularly valuable for treating burns and calming troubled sleep. Please convey my gratitude. You reply in careful Latin, the common tongue that allows communication across the patchwork of local languages. God's creatures provide us with remarkable medicines if we but learn to use them properly. The brother nods in agreement. Will you continue towards Santiago today? Yes, I hope to reach the town of Estella by nightfall. Then go with God's protection. The road is relatively safe, but remember to join with other travelers when passing through the forest sections. Last month, there was trouble with bandits there. This practical advice, part of the unofficial network of information that passes among pilgrims and those who serve them, is as valuable as the honey. You thank him again, gather your staff and hat, and step out into the growing light of morning. The Camino de Santiago stretches before you, a ribbon of earth worn by countless feet over centuries. You've already traveled hundreds of miles from your home in the German lands, crossing through the Alpine passes into France, and over the Pyrenees into the Iberian Peninsula. Each region has offered new healing knowledge, plants unknown in your homeland, preparation methods you'd never encountered, theories of illness and health based on different understandings of the human body. Your journey serves dual purposes: the spiritual pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela that will cleanse your soul, and the medical pilgrimage that expands your healing knowledge. As the youngest son of a renowned healer, you inherited both your father's skills and his curiosity about remedies beyond your local traditions. When the opportunity for pilgrimage arose following your father's death, you recognized it as both tribute to his memory and continuation of his quest for broader medical understanding. The morning air carries the scent of pine and distant wood smoke as you follow the well-marked path. Soon you encounter other pilgrims setting out from different lodgings. A French nobleman traveling with 2 servants, a family of cloth merchants with a small donkey bearing their trade goods, a group of young clerics engaged in animated theological debate as they walk. You exchange brief greetings, falling into step with the merchants whose pace matches your own. You're the healer, yes? From the German lands? The merchant's wife asks in accented French, another common language along the pilgrimage routes. We saw you at the hospice yesterday, treating the old monk. You confirm your identity, and conversation flows easily as you walk together. The family trades in fine wool and linen fabrics, traveling regularly between production centers and markets across several kingdoms. Their knowledge of roads, local customs, and regional differences makes them ideal traveling companions. My youngest has developed a troublesome cough since we entered these higher elevations, the merchant mentions after some general conversation. My wife has been giving him anise tea, but it provides only temporary relief. You glance at the child, a boy of perhaps 7 years, walking alongside the donkey. His breathing seems slightly labored, though he shows no other signs of serious illness. If you wish, I could prepare something more effective when we stop at midday, you offer. The parents exchange hopeful glances, then nod gratefully. We would be most appreciative and can offer fair payment, of course. The morning passes pleasantly as your group makes steady progress along the pilgrim road. The landscape gradually shifts from forested hills to more open country where olive groves and small vineyards pattern the hillsides. Occasional roadside shrines provide moments of rest and devotion. Simple stone markers or more elaborate small chapels where pilgrims pause to pray, leave offerings, or simply catch their breath before continuing their journey. At one such shrine, dedicated to Saint Roch, patron of pilgrims and healers, you notice an unusual offering among the candles and small tokens left by previous travelers. A crude clay cup contains what appears to be honey, darkened by exposure but still recognizable. Beside it, scratched into the stone in rough Latin, are the words, Gratia pro sanationem. Thanks for healing. The merchant notices your interest. Local tradition, he explains. In these parts, they believe Saint Roch healed plague victims with honey from wild bees. Travelers who recover from illness along the Camino leave honey as thanks. You nod, intrigued by this regional variation of the saint's story. Throughout your journey, you've encountered countless local healing traditions, some based on recognizable medical principles, others seeming more superstitious, yet often containing kernels of practical wisdom hidden within spiritual frameworks. By midday, your group reaches a popular resting spot, a small clearing near a spring with stone benches placed by some long-ago benefactor concerned for pilgrims' comfort. While others refresh themselves and prepare simple meals from provisions carried in their packs, you turn your attention to the merchant's son. You examine the boy carefully, checking his throat, listening to his breathing, asking questions about when the cough worsens or improves. Your diagnosis confirms what experience suggested. The dry mountain air has irritated his airways, creating a persistent cough that disrupts his sleep and depletes his energy. From your healer's kit, you remove several small linen packets containing dried herbs collected or purchased along your journey. You select thyme gathered in Provence, known for its effectiveness against chest complaints, and mullein flowers acquired from an elderly healer in a Pyrenean village. To these, you add a small amount of licorice root, one of the few remedies you still carry from your homeland. The boy watches with curious eyes as you crush these ingredients using a small mortar and pestle that travels in your kit. Now, for the most important component, you tell him with a gentle smile, bringing out the clay pot given to you that morning. Honey from bees that visit lavender flowers. It will soothe your throat while the herbs work on the deeper irritation. You combine the crushed herbs with a generous portion of honey, mixing thoroughly with a small wooden spatula. The resulting preparation fills a compact ceramic container that you seal carefully and present to the boy's mother. One spoonful morning and evening, and another if the coughing disrupts his sleep, you instruct. Warm it slightly before giving. It to him, just enough to soften, not enough to destroy the honey's properties. Continue until the container is empty, even if symptoms improve before then. The merchant insists on paying you despite your initial resistance. Pilgrims often exchange services rather than coin. We maintain our dignity by paying fairly for honest services, he says firmly, placing several small silver coins in your palm. God may provide for his servants, but he does so through the proper commerce between his children. You accept with appropriate gratitude, knowing the money will ensure comfortable lodging and adequate provisions as your journey continues. The pilgrim's path teaches both spiritual detachment from worldly goods and practical wisdom about maintaining one's ability to complete the arduous journey. The afternoon brings steeper terrain as the road winds through increasingly rugged country. Your group has grown larger, safety in numbers being the prudent approach when traveling through less populated areas. Among the new additions is an elderly pilgrim leaning heavily on a staff carved with scallop shells, the symbol of Santiago. His labored movement catches your healer's eye, the distinctive gait of one whose joints have stiffened with age and hard use. Without intruding, you gradually adjust your pace to walk alongside him. After appropriate greetings and the customary exchange of information about your respective origins and destinations, you gently inquire about his obvious discomfort. "These old bones have carried me from Canterbury," he replies in heavily accented Latin, "but they protest more loudly with each passing league." His weathered face shows both pain and determination. God will grant me strength to complete what I have begun. God also provides knowledge of plants and remedies to ease suffering, you suggest. I am a trained healer and could prepare something to reduce your pain, if you would accept such assistance. He studies your face, perhaps assessing whether the offer comes from genuine compassion or self-interest. Apparently satisfied, he nods. When we stop for the night, these legs will carry me until then. As the afternoon wears on, you notice other medical needs among your fellow travelers. A young woman with blistered feet, poorly protected by inadequate footwear. A middle-aged cleric whose breathing suggests asthmatic tendencies, aggravated by road dust. A child with an inflamed insect bite on one arm. The pilgrim road collects human suffering as it collects human stories, creating a mobile community united by common purpose despite diverse origins. You reach Estella as evening approaches, its church spires and stone buildings welcoming against the darkening sky. The town, accustomed to the constant flow of pilgrims, offers various accommodations according to travelers' means and status. The merchants head toward an inn, catering to those of moderate prosperity, the noblemen to private lodgings arranged through ecclesiastical connections, and most others toward the pilgrim hospice maintained by a religious order. You choose the hospice, both for economy and opportunity. Such places often become informal exchanges for information, with travelers from different lands sharing news, stories, and knowledge. Before parting from the merchant family, you check the son's condition and provide additional instructions for using the honey preparation. The elderly pilgrim from Canterbury accompanies you to the hospice, introducing himself properly as William, once a master stonemason before age and weakening eyesight ended his craft. The hospice proves clean and reasonably comfortable by pilgrim standards. A large room with straw pallets, communal washing facilities, and the promise of a hot meal provided by the brothers who maintain it. After securing spaces and leaving your minimal belongings, you take William to a quiet corner where you can examine his joints more thoroughly. Years of work with heavy stone have left their mark. His fingers show the characteristic swelling of long-term joint stress, while his knees and hips bear the burden of a lifetime spent climbing scaffolding. From your kit, you produce a small jar of salve, beeswax and olive oil infused with arnica flowers, willow bark, and meadowsweet, bound together with dark honey from alpine regions. This should be massaged into the worst areas, you instruct, demonstrating the proper technique on his gnarled hands. The warmth of rubbing helps the remedies penetrate to the deeper tissues. William sighs with visible relief as the treatment begins taking effect. "We had something similar in my homeland," he comments, "made with tallow rather than beeswax, and our honey was paler, from clover fields. But the principle seems the same." This confirms your growing understanding that while specific ingredients might change across regions, certain fundamental healing approaches appear consistently throughout Christendom and beyond. A universal language of medicine that transcends borders and local traditions. The hospice bell announces the evening meal, drawing pilgrims to long wooden tables in a refectory lit by rushlights and tallow candles. A simple fare: bean soup, bread, small portions of salted fish, watered wine, taste extraordinary after a day of walking. Around you, conversations flow in multiple languages, occasionally finding common ground in Latin, French, or simple gesture when words fail. After the meal, as custom dictates, travelers exchange news and stories. A merchant from Barcelona describes political tensions in the southern kingdoms. A group of German pilgrims shares information about a bridge washed out by recent rains, requiring a detour on tomorrow's route. A French noblewoman traveling under the protection of her brother's soldiers recounts a miraculous cure experienced at a shrine 3 days' journey back. When talk turns to remedies and medicine, a common topic among pilgrims concerned with maintaining health far from home, you listen with particular attention. A white-bearded man in Byzantine dress mentions a honey preparation used in Constantinople for infected wounds. They gather it from hives placed near thyme fields, he explains through a younger companion who translates. The honey alone works wonders, but they enhance it with a special resin collected from trees in distant mountains. This description immediately captures your interest. Might this resin be what Western physicians call propolis, you ask, using the Greek-derived term. The substance bees use to seal their hives. The Byzantine traveller nods vigorously when this is translated. Yes, exactly so. They scrape it carefully from the hives, dissolve it in strong spirit, then mix it with the thyme honey. Wounds that fester and resist other treatments often heal under its influence. You make mental note of this technique, having observed yourself how honey prevents corruption in wounds, but not having encountered this particular enhancement. Throughout your journey, such exchanges have proven as valuable as formal medical texts. Practical knowledge tested through generations of application, passed orally between healers who might never have access to written medical authorities. As evening progresses, you find yourself treating several fellow pilgrims with minor complaints. The blistered feet you noticed earlier, a persistent headache troubling a middle-aged woman, a young man's rash likely caused by unfamiliar plants encountered along the road. For each, you select appropriate remedies from your kit, often incorporating the lavender honey received that morning. One young pilgrim, observing your work with evident fascination, introduces himself as Thomas, a student from Oxford traveling to Santiago before continuing to the medical school at Montpellier. I've read Galen and Avicenna, he tells you eagerly, but never seen such practical application of honey in various treatments. Is this common practice in your homeland? My father taught me that honey provides the perfect base for many remedies, you explain as you work. It preserves the potency of herbs that would otherwise deteriorate. It provides its own healing properties, while carrying other medicines deeper into wounded tissues. And unlike many bases, it rarely causes adverse reactions in those who receive it. Thomas watches intently as you prepare a compress for a woman's inflamed knee, soaking clean linen in warm water infused with herbs, then spreading a layer of honey directly on the cloth before applying it. The texts speak of honey's virtues, he says thoughtfully, but not these specific applications. There seems a gap between what is written and what is practiced. This is why I journey, you reply. Books contain invaluable knowledge, but hands must learn what eyes alone cannot teach. Each region holds wisdom not recorded in any text accessible to us. The Pilgrim Road becomes a school for those willing to observe and listen. As night deepens and pilgrims settle onto their pallets, you record the day's new knowledge in a small, vellum notebook, another item carried from your homeland. By rushlight, you sketch the Byzantine wound treatment, note the local tradition of honey offerings to Saint Roch, and describe the particular properties observed in the lavender-infused monastery honey. These observations join dozens of similar entries made throughout your journey, a growing compendium of practical healing knowledge gathered from many lands. Morning comes with monastery bells and the stirring of pilgrims preparing for another day's journey. Some will remain your companions on the road to Santiago. Others will take different routes or rest longer in Estella. The fluid community of the Camino constantly reforms as travelers move at different paces or pause at sites of particular spiritual significance. Before departing, you check on those you treated the previous evening. The elderly stonemason reports less pain in his joints after using your salve. The merchant's son, encountered again at the town's central fountain, shows improved breathing and reduced coughing. The young woman's blistered feet, properly dressed and protected, allow her to continue her journey with less discomfort. These small healings bring satisfaction deeper than the few coins received in payment or gratitude. Each represents knowledge, confirmed through application, theories tested against the reality of suffering bodies, remedies proven effective across different constitutions and conditions. Your path today takes you through more isolated terrain, rolling hills covered with scrubby vegetation, occasional groves of olive trees twisted by wind into sculptural forms, distant mountains framing the horizon. You walk with a smaller group, including William the stonemason and 3 clerics from northern Italy, making their first pilgrimage to Santiago. The conversation turns, as it often does among educated travelers, to the differences between regions you've all encountered. In my homeland, one of the Italian clerics offers, honey is valued more for preservation of fruits than for medicine. We combine it with wine and spices to keep summer's bounty available through winter months. In Canterbury, William adds, our monastery kept special hives dedicated to producing honey solely for treating wounds received by stonemasons and other craftsmen working on the cathedral. The brothers claimed this honey worked better than any from ordinary hives because the bees visited only flowers growing in the monastery garden, many of them medicinal herbs planted specifically for healing purposes. This practice, maintaining hives with controlled access to specific plants, matches accounts you've heard elsewhere, reinforcing your understanding that honey's medicinal properties derive partly from the particular flowers visited by the bees. The concept seems understood across widely separated regions, though explained through different frameworks, some emphasizing divine design, others focusing on natural properties without religious interpretation. Midday finds your group resting beside a small stream where wild mint grows abundantly along the banks. You gather some fresh leaves, explaining to your curious companions how they can be crushed and applied directly to temples for relief from headaches caused by sun exposure, a common affliction among pilgrims walking long hours in open country. The afternoon journey proves more challenging as the path climbs steadily through increasingly rocky terrain. The group's pace slows, conversation giving way to the necessities of careful footing and measured breathing. When you finally crest a particular steep section, a remarkable view unfolds. The pilgrim road winding like a pale ribbon through the valley below, eventually leading to a distant town clustered around a prominent church spire. San Juan de Ortega, one of the clerics, identifies the settlement. Known for its honey miraculous in curing children's fevers, we should reach it by evening. This information immediately piques your interest. Throughout your journey, you've made special effort to investigate local honey varieties reputed to have specific healing properties. Some claims proved exaggerated when examined closely, more spiritual comfort than physical remedy, but others revealed genuine medicinal value, often associated with particular local plants visited by the bees. The descent into the valley passes quickly, anticipation lending energy to tired legs. As your group approaches the town, you notice extensive gardens surrounding the monastery that dominates the settlement. Unusually diverse plantings that suggest deliberate cultivation of medicinal species. Beehives are visible at the garden's edge, positioned to give bees easy access to the carefully tended plants. The hospice attached to San Juan de Ortega proves more elaborate than most you've encountered. Cleaner, better organized, with separate sleeping areas for men and women and washing facilities that include heated water. A rare luxury for pilgrims accustomed to cold streams or communal fountains. After securing your place and performing evening ablutions, you seek out the brother responsible for the hospice. "I am a healer," you explain, showing your medallion of authorization. "I've heard that this monastery produces honey with special properties for treating children's fevers. Might I learn more about this preparation?" The brother, a man of middle, years with intelligent eyes and hands that suggest previous work as a scribe, considers you thoughtfully before responding. "Our honey does indeed carry God's special blessing for the healing of little ones," he says carefully. "Brother Mateo oversees its production and application. If you wish, I can introduce you to him after the evening meal." You express sincere gratitude for this opportunity. Access to specialized healing knowledge often depends on such personal introductions. One practitioner recognizing legitimate interest and proper training in another, regardless of differences in region or specific tradition. The monastery provides pilgrims with a meal more substantial than usually encountered at hospices. Vegetable stew rich with local herbs, bread still warm from baking, small portions of sheep's cheese, and honeyed wine that several fellow travelers comment upon for its distinctive flavor. You note its unusual complexity. Beneath the expected sweetness lies a subtle bitterness, balanced by aromatic notes suggesting lavender, thyme, and something less familiar. After the meal and customary prayer, the hospice brother motions you to follow him through the monastery's inner passages. He leads you to a small outbuilding separate from the main structures. A workshop filled with the unmistakable sweet scent of honey and beeswax. Inside, an elderly monk works by lamplight, carefully straining honey through fine linen into earthenware. "Jars." Brother Mateo, your guide announces, "This pilgrim is a trained healer interested in our fever remedy." The elderly monk looks up, his deeply lined face momentarily suspicious before warming into a cautious smile. "Few pilgrims inquire about our methods," he says, being content simply to receive the benefits without understanding the process. He gestures toward a wooden bench. "Please, sit. If you have knowledge of bees and healing, we may have much to discuss." The next hour passes in fascinating conversation as Brother Mateo explains the monastery's specialized approach to producing medicinal honey. Unlike most apiaries, they maintain several distinct types of hives, each with access to different plant collections. The fever-reducing honey comes from bees that primarily visit a carefully cultivated area containing feverfew, linden trees, and meadowsweet, all plants known independently for reducing high temperatures in the sick. But this alone would not create the potency we've observed, the elderly monk explains, warming to his subject upon finding a knowledgeable audience. The true secret lies in how we harvest and process this particular honey. He describes a method you've never encountered before, harvesting only during certain moon phases, keeping this honey separate from all others, storing it in special containers made from clay sourced from a specific location, and activating its properties through a process involving gradual warming while specific prayers are recited. Your scientific mind separates the technical aspects from the spiritual framework in which Brother Mateo presents them. The careful timing of harvest likely ensures optimal potency of the plants being visited. The special clay containers might provide minerals that interact beneficially with the honey. The warming process could activate enzymes or improve the honey's ability to absorb and hold the medicinal components. You ask thoughtful questions about outcomes, how quickly fevers typically reduce after treatment, whether certain types of fevers respond better than others? What dosages prove most effective for different ages? Brother Matteo answers with the precision of someone who has documented results over many years, though his explanations reference divine blessing rather than physical mechanisms. Would it be possible, you ask carefully, to obtain a small amount of this special honey for my healing kit? I encounter many sick children on the pilgrim road who might benefit from its properties. The monk considers your request with appropriate seriousness. Ordinarily, we provide it only for use here or in the surrounding villages. However, he studies your face as if making a final assessment of your intentions. I sense genuine compassion for suffering in you, rather than mere curiosity or desire for unusual remedies. Wait here. He disappears briefly into an adjoining storeroom, returning with a small ceramic container sealed with red wax. This should treat approximately 8 children, if used according to our recommended dosage. He provides detailed instructions for administration, specific amounts based on the child's age, timing relative to symptoms, prayers to accompany each dose. You accept the gift with profound gratitude, offering in exchange some of the specialty herbs carried from your homeland that you know are difficult to obtain in this region. Brother Matteo receives them with evident pleasure, recognizing several that he's read about but never worked with directly. This exchange, healing knowledge and materials passing between practitioners from different traditions, represents the deeper purpose of your pilgrimage beyond its spiritual dimensions. Before you leave the workshop, Brother Matteo offers one final insight. Remember always that honey carries the essence of specific places, the unique combination of soil, water, plants, and even the character of the bees that produce it. What heals in one location may differ from what heals in another. The wise healer learns to recognize these differences rather than assuming all honey offers identical properties. This perspective, honey as an embodiment of specific ecological relationships rather than a generic substance, aligns perfectly with observations you've recorded throughout your journey. From the dark, pine-scented honey of alpine regions to the pale, delicate product of lowland meadows, from the almost medicinal-tasting honey of monastery gardens to the robust flavors of forest varieties, each carries unique properties reflecting its origins. You return to the pilgrim hospice with your precious acquisition carefully packed among your supplies. Tomorrow will bring another day of walking, another stretch of the ancient road leading eventually to Santiago, but each step now carries you forward, not just in physical or spiritual journey, but in accumulation of healing knowledge, practical wisdom gathered from monks and village healers, physicians and folk practitioners, written texts and oral traditions. In your small vellum notebook by the dim light of the hospice at night, you record the day's discoveries. Brother Matteo's specialized honey production methods, the Byzantine wound treatment learned the previous evening, the wild mint growing alongside, the stream that might serve as emergency headache remedy for fellow travelers. Each entry represents another fragment of the vast, collective human understanding of healing, often preserved in practical traditions outside formal medical authorities. As sleep approaches, your thoughts turn to the distance yet to travel, both the physical road to Santiago and the metaphorical journey of medical knowledge. Your father once told you that a healer's education never ends, that nature's pharmacy offers more remedies than any single lifetime could fully explore. Your pilgrimage has proven his wisdom, revealing how much remains to be learned even about substances as seemingly simple as honey. With each region traversed, Each conversation with local healers, each observation of different honey varieties and their applications, your understanding grows more nuanced. The substance that began as simply honey in your thinking has revealed itself as hundreds of distinct medicines, each carrying the essence of specific places and plant communities, each offering particular healing properties when properly understood and applied. Tomorrow's road will undoubtedly bring new discoveries, another monastery with unique preparations, another village healer willing to share local traditions, another plant previously unknown to you. The pilgrim path unwinds before you like the pages of a living medical manuscript, written in the language of practical experience rather than scholarly Latin, illustrated not with gold leaf, but with the actual plants and remedies encountered along the way. As consciousness fades toward dreams, you find comfort in this continuous accumulation of healing wisdom, a pilgrimage that serves both soul and profession, advancing spiritual journey and medical knowledge with each step taken. The special honey from San Juan de Ortega, carefully packed among your supplies, represents one more precious addition to the growing pharmacy you carry. Remedies gathered from many lands, but united by the common human desire to ease suffering and preserve life. Your last waking thought acknowledges the bees themselves, those tireless collectors who, like you, travel widely to gather essence from many sources, transforming it through their own processes into something that both preserves and heals. In their humble work, performed without recognition or reward, lies a model for the healer's path, gathering knowledge from wherever it blooms, carrying it to where need exists, transforming it through careful preparation into remedies that serve the common good. The pilgrim's dusty path fades away as stone walls rise around you, walls that house not sacred relics, but sacred knowledge. Here in a medieval university, ancient texts and bold new ideas collide, creating fertile ground for medical discovery. Among lecterns and manuscripts, you pursue the formal study of what your hands already know, that honey's golden touch can bridge the gap between traditional wisdom and emerging science. You wake to the sound of church bells rolling across Salerno, first the cathedral's deep resonance, then the replies of smaller parish churches and monasteries throughout the city. Dawn light filters through your narrow window, illuminating the small chamber you rent in a house near the Scola, Medica Salernitana, Europe's most renowned center for medical education. The room contains little beyond necessities: a narrow bed, a wooden chest for clothing, a small table where manuscripts and writing materials lie in careful order, and a shelf holding your most precious possessions, books acquired through significant sacrifice. Rising, you perform morning ablutions using water from the ceramic pitcher on your washstand, its coolness fully awakening you for the day ahead. You dress in the simple but respectable garments appropriate for a medical student of modest means: woolen tunic, linen undergarments, leather belt with small pouch containing writing implements. From a hook on the wall, you take the dark outer robe that identifies you as a scholar of the medical school. Its weight across your shoulders a daily reminder of the privilege and responsibility you've undertaken. Your morning ritual includes a moment of quiet contemplation, thoughts of the northern village where your journey began, the family whose sacrifices support your studies, the grandfather whose healing skills first inspired your path. His weathered hands mixing honey with herbs at his work table appears in your mind's eye, a memory that grounds your theoretical studies in practical purpose. Knowledge without application heals no one, he often said, words that echo as you gather your materials for today's lectures. The streets of Salerno bustle with early activity as you make your way toward the school. Merchants arrange wares in market stalls. Fishermen display the night's catch on beds of seaweed. Monks hurry toward morning offices, and fellow students emerge from lodgings throughout the neighborhood surrounding the medical school. The salt-tinged air from the nearby Gulf of Salerno mingles with aromas of baking bread, strong herbs from apothecary shops, and the ever-present scent of humanity concentrated within city walls. Salerno itself represents a crossroads of knowledge, positioned at the intersection of Latin, Greek, Arabic, and Jewish medical traditions. Its school drawing students and masters from throughout the Mediterranean world and beyond. This convergence of healing approaches creates both intellectual ferment and occasional conflict as different traditions assert their authority. You arrive at the school complex as other students gather in the central courtyard before dispersing to various lecture halls and demonstration rooms. The buildings, substantial but unadorned, reflect the practical focus of Salerno's medical education, less concerned with philosophical abstractions than with effective diagnosis and treatment. Today's schedule begins with Master Gerardus's lecture on the medical properties of natural substances, a subject of particular interest given your background and the research project you've been developing under his guidance. You find a seat in the lecture hall, arranging your writing materials on the sloped surface before you. Around you, students from diverse origins settle in. Italians from various city-states, Frenchmen, Germans, even a few scholars from as far as England and Scotland. Master Gerardus enters, a commanding figure despite his advanced age. Trained initially in the Benedictine medical tradition before studying Arabic medical texts in Sicily, he represents the synthesis of approaches that makes Salerno unique. His lectures integrate Hippocratic and Galenic foundations with insights from Ibn. Thank you for spending this quiet time with us, drifting through forgotten echoes of history. If this story brought you peace, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs rest. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Until next time, sleep well, dream softly, and good night.